On September 16, 2021, a terrible event occurred, shocking all of New Zealand and South Africa. Liane, an exemplary mother, murdered her 3 young daughters. People who knew this family of medics personally could not believe it. For years, the Dickason family lived an ordinary life, building their careers, managing their lives, and raising 3 wonderful girls, Liane, Maya, and Karla. The family lived well. The children were long awaited and loved. Life seemed wonderful. The tragedy happened completely unexpectedly, although its causes had been brewing since Liane's childhood. Liane Fox was the eldest daughter of Malcolm and Wendy Fox. The family lived in South Africa. Liane's childhood was filled with difficulties, especially with socialization. Because of this, she could not get along with either teachers or children, so she always found herself in a kind of isolation. There were no noisy birthdays or friendly parties in her life. The girl grew up without companionship, and this led to the aggravation of psychological problems in her teenage years. Liane was very anxious, barely able to restrain herself, and saw dangers everywhere. These difficulties began when she turned 15 years old. From childhood, she was interested in medicine, so after school, she entered college and later became a general practitioner. During her work in the following years, she met Dickason, an orthopedic doctor. Unlike Liane, the young man was very sociable and open, which manifested itself in all areas of his life. Despite such significant differences, they quickly grew close and fell in love. There seemed to be complete harmony between them. They perfectly complemented each other. Due to her boyfriend's influence, Liane became more cheerful and sociable. In May 2006, they got married. At that time, the family lived in Pretoria, South Africa. After the wedding, the couple jointly built a house there. It was located on almost 2.2 acres of private land. The house had 4 bedrooms, a gym, and a pool, which indicated a fairly high level of well-being for the family. After starting their life together, Liane's field of activity changed slightly. She began to specialize in gynecology and neurological diseases. But practically immediately after trying to get pregnant, she decided to put her career on hold for the sake of having children. She last engaged in medical practice in 2012, but later returned to work at a medical center, no longer as a practicing doctor but as a part-time manager. She helped her husband. However, due to identified health problems, the couple could not conceive a child, although they desperately wanted to. Therefore, in 2013, the couple turned to reproductive specialists. As a result, after effective treatment, they had a girl, whom they named Sarah. But the birth was premature at 18 weeks of pregnancy, and the child later died. According to African medical practice, newborns under 20 weeks are not even considered a miscarriage. They are classified as medical waste. So Sarah was disposed of in the same way as trash. Because of this, the couple could not even properly say goodbye to their daughter and bury her, which was a huge blow to the woman, after which she cried every day for 2 months. Then there were consultations with reproductive specialists. The couple again could not get pregnant. Liane went through 17 cycles of IVF, known for its financial and emotional burden on patients. Eventually, the Dickasons decided to use donor eggs, thanks to which they had their first daughter, Liane. During pregnancy, the mother of the family was very worried, afraid of an unfavorable outcome and losing the child. Against this background, psychological problems arose again. After giving birth in 2015, she sought help from specialists, who made a disappointing diagnosis: anxiety, postpartum depression, and major depressive disorder. At that time, Liane was 18 months old. The husband took leave and took care of the girl. Other relatives also joined in the child care. Liane followed the doctor's recommendations and coped with her ailment, thanks to medication. It seemed that everything had improved. The happy parents did not stop trying to have a second child. After a few years, Liane became pregnant again. This time, the ultrasound showed twins. The couple was delighted that their family would be replenished with 2 people at once. However, during the examination, a cleft palate, or a so-called wolf's mouth, was found in one of the girls. Because of this, Liane fell into anxiety again, felt strong stress, and was very worried about the overall condition of her babies in her belly. In 2018, twins Maya and Karla were born. At 5 months old, an operation was performed to correct the congenital anomaly of one of them. After that, both arms of the child were fixed with splints so that she would not touch her face. The family successfully coped with this problem. In addition, after the operation, the Dickasons decided to hire a nanny to help the mother of many children. At that time, Lauren felt the main burden of household problems associated with the birth of children, and she was still haunted by panic attacks. During the same period, the head of the family worked late. He had to work hard to keep such a large family prosperous and not deny them anything. He described his wife as a very restless mother who worried about everything. Lauren constantly worried that something would happen to the children and showed hyperprotection, literally monitoring their every step. This annoyed the children and created tension in the house, as the mother sometimes used harsh measures to make them obey or calm down. Eventually, all the difficulties were overcome. The Dickasons were a fairly wealthy family. They could afford a housekeeper, a gardener, and a nanny. Household helpers were needed to reduce the burden on the mother of the family, who was not going through the best of times in terms of mental health. However, by 2020, changes began in the family. Due to the pandemic, strict restrictive measures were introduced in the country, and the Dickasons decided to live abroad. They sold their house with land plots and temporarily rented a comfortable apartment. Just 6 months before the tragedy, the situation and atmosphere in the family were so happy that Lauren stopped taking antidepressants for the first time in 10 years. By March 2021, all medications were cancelled for her. The woman seemed completely mentally healthy, and nothing foreshadowed trouble. She began doing CrossFit at least 3 times a week to maintain her athletic shape. Lauren also managed to cope with an eating disorder. She began to look much better and acquired a more positive outlook on life, which allowed her to realize its value in a new way. Her husband could not help but notice these positive changes. He was glad that his wife seemed to have overcome her ailments and that their family was fine. Unfortunately, the joy did not last long. By June 2021, restrictions on movement around the city were again introduced, as well as a number of other prohibitions for the period of the COVID pandemic. Against this background, Lauren's depression began again. During this period, due to the quarantine, the head of the family was not working and spent time with his family. The children were drawn to their father and willingly spent all their time together. At this moment, Lauren found herself on the sidelines of family life because she often had conflicts with the children, and they became less drawn to her. It was difficult for the mother to cope with them, but they got along perfectly with their father. When Graham went back to work, the children asked 100 times a day when their dad would come home. The woman felt inferior because of this, since she could not establish a full-fledged relationship with her daughters. Lauren repeatedly complained that she got the loudest children in the world. In July 2021, a wave of unrest swept through South Africa, which scared Lauren to paranoia. An aggressive crowd of protesters committed outrages, looted, and attacked. As a result, the entire family, due to the woman's panic, decided to move to New Zealand, where it was quiet and calm, and it seemed that life would now normalize. This place was not chosen by chance. Graham's parents lived here. However, problems could arise in the new country. There were numerous obstacles since immigration took place in a pandemic. People could be denied a residence permit even on the basis of a chronic illness or for not meeting certain health standards. To hide her problems, the mother of 3 stopped taking antidepressants shortly before moving. However, this was not recklessness on her part, since, from February 2020, her psychiatrist noted in a report that Lauren was safe for society and herself and did not insist on taking antidepressants. The prescribing of medications was only of a recommendatory nature in the process of moving. The woman again experienced severe stress. She was very worried that the immigration would not take place. Immediately before the trip to New Zealand, the family had to undergo mandatory isolation. It was expected that they would stay in this state for about a week to detect possible symptoms of COVID before flying to another country. One of the daughters tested positive, so they were quarantined for another 2 weeks. Such a long period of isolation was difficult for the whole family. It was during this time that friction began between the spouses. At the end of August 26th, the whole family left South Africa. Later, Lauren described this trip as the most nightmarish of her life. She was literally consumed with doubts and fears about their success in New Zealand. Upon arrival, they were quarantined again for a period of 2 more weeks. The whole family was placed in a hotel room where food was delivered. They were not allowed to leave the room except for the hour allocated daily for walks. Many called this period of isolation very traumatic from a moral point of view. It is not surprising that Lauren was not in the best shape, and this only worsened her condition. Finally, the forced isolation came to an end. This happened on the eve of the couple's 15th wedding anniversary, for which Lauren congratulated Graham on social networks. She thanked her husband for these incredible adventures and for creating a wonderful family. The couple, along with their daughters, settled in Timaru, which at that time had a population of about 30,000 people. It is a very quiet and hospitable town. However, even here, things did not go according to Lauren's plans. First, living conditions were not much better than in South Africa. Even electricity was turned off with the same frequency. In addition, Graham got a job as an orthopedist much earlier than originally planned. Almost immediately after the quarantine, he began working at a hospital in Timaru and went on shift. Lauren had expected they would have more time to resolve all issues related to the move and adapt to the new environment, with her husband's support. Instead, the exhausted mother found herself up to her ears in everyday problems and was left alone with 3 small children without any help. On the appointed day, the family arrived at the migration department. They were very worried since their chosen country had strict rules for accepting potential citizens, and many applicants faced rejections. Their documents were accepted, and they were sent to wait for a response. Later, the couple visited a local Christian school to enroll their children in a preschool group. Graham recalled that during this period, his wife seemed particularly depressed. The night before, on September 15, 2021, Lauren could not sleep. The next day, she had to take the twins to kindergarten and her eldest daughter to school, but she managed to rest for only 3 hours at night. The morning began noisily, as the children were excited by the early rise and gathering. They chose clothes for themselves, oblivious to their mother's fatigue. Lauren took them to kindergarten and school. Returning home, she lay down to rest. At 10:47 in the morning, Lauren received a photo from the kindergarten teacher in which her twins were sitting at the table, sweetly having lunch. After running errands all day, Lauren picked up the girls from kindergarten and school around 3 p.m. and took them to the playground. Later, at home, one of the twins, Karla, threw a tantrum because her dad was at work and she missed him very much. The other twin, Maya, who had recently fallen out of bed and had stitches, was in pain. The girls cried so hard that their mother could not calm them down. At this moment, Lauren felt like a bad mother. It was difficult for her to appease the children as they did not listen to her at all. She prepared chicken nuggets for them, but the children said it wasn't enough to make them happy. This phrase became the last straw for Lauren, who was already severely depressed. She bathed the children and put them to bed around 6 p.m. Several messages from South African friends arrived on Lauren's phone, but most of them went unanswered. Graham came home from work briefly, had dinner, and left for an important meeting at 7 p.m. During his absence, a terrible tragedy occurred in the house. Approximately 20 minutes after Graham left, the children began screaming again. Lauren went to the garage to get plastic ties, bringing back a whole pack. She told the children they would weave necklaces and make ties. The younger ones, unaware of what was happening, joined the game willingly. However, Lana, the eldest daughter, became angry and shouted at her mother, disliking what was going on. This was no game. Lauren, in her deeply distressed state, decided to strangle her children with the cable ties. Realizing they were not effective, she began to suffocate the girls with pillows and blankets. She repeated that she was very ill and would soon die, so she was doing this because no one would care for them after her death. After ensuring the children were no longer showing signs of life, Lauren attempted to take her own life. However, she found the cable ties ineffective for suffocation. She tried to injure herself with a knife, but all of them were too dull to cause a deep wound. Finally, she took several large doses of various medications, but even that was insufficient to cause death. Lauren sat in the kitchen on the floor, exhausted, reflecting on what had happened. She remained in this state for several hours until Graham returned. Seeing his wife in an unusual state, he asked if everything was all right. Her incomprehensible response alarmed him. Graham rushed upstairs to check on the children. Graham went up to Leona's room to see if everything was all right, but found only her cold body with cable ties around her neck in the girl's bed. He looked into the other room and also found the lifeless bodies of Maya and Karla there. Graham tried to tear off the ties but could not do it. The man ran downstairs to the kitchen for scissors, seeing his wife there, who continued to mutter something. He started yelling at her, but Lauren did not react to him in any way. The man grabbed the scissors and ran upstairs again, trying to help his children. He cut the ties on all his daughters, but it was too late. Nothing helped. The man could not find signs of life in his children and turned to a colleague from a hospital who lived across the street for help. He ran out into the street to meet his colleague. The last thing the head of the family saw before closing the door was his wife lying on the floor with her eyes closed. Graham was not sure if she was alive or not. He was only worried about his daughters, so he did not waste precious time on Lauren. A friend from the hospital tried to provide assistance and save the children, but all efforts were in vain. Around 9:40 p.m., the neighbors heard a loud bang. It turned out to be a loud slamming of the door when Graham ran to his colleague, followed by sobs and screams near the Dickason's house. Graham walked near the house and shouted that everything that had happened was his fault. He was tormented that he had left the children with their mother, who was out of her mind. Emergency services were called to the scene by neighbors. The police and an ambulance arrived around 10 p.m. Law enforcement officers found the murdered children in the house with cut cable ties around their necks, and doctors pronounced the death of 2-year-old twins Maya and Karla and their 6-year-old sister Liane. On the kitchen floor, police officers found Lauren. She was alive and conscious and answered the questions of the patrol officers, but did so in a very quiet, muffled voice. The woman seemed devastated. Shallow cuts were found on her arms and forearms, covered with adhesive plasters. The police asked if she had taken any prohibited substances that evening, but the woman denied it, although it was, of course, a lie. Later, 9 plates of various medications that Lauren had taken were found in the trash can nearby. A pack of 100 cable ties was found. A toxicological examination confirmed that there were no prohibited substances or alcohol in the woman's blood, but tests showed a high content of antidepressants, sedatives, and other medications. 40-year-old Lauren was immediately arrested and sent to the hospital for assistance. The news of the brutal murder of 3 children shocked all local residents, and within a few days, it shook all of New Zealand and South Africa. The nanny who worked in their house, upon learning about the tragedy, literally lost her speech. The woman could not believe for a long time that it was true. She said in an interview that Lauren and Graham, with their children, were the perfect family. She had never seen anything bad in their home, no quarrels or conflicts. The nanny was sure that Lauren loved her children with all her heart. The last time she saw the children was in June 2021. The family was delighted with the move to New Zealand and was looking forward to the trip. After Lauren was taken into custody, Graham was forced to return to South Africa as his visa was expiring in December 2021. Then, he returned to the country again to participate in the trial. He corresponded with his wife. The man simply did not want to believe that his wife had dealt with the children. It seemed he even supported her. The day after the arrest, Lauren woke up in the hospital. She did not believe that she could survive all this and was even more shocked when police officers entered the ward and accused her of murdering 3 girls. On September 18, Lauren Dickason was officially charged with triple murder. Later, after recovering in the hospital, the woman confessed to the crime during interrogation but insisted that she did not wish them harm. It happened because of her insanity. She justified herself by her mental state and a whole bunch of problems that she had recently faced. Lauren felt that she was bad at being a mother. She could not cope. The children screamed constantly. At some point, she simply could not stand it. The woman also described in detail how she killed her children one by one, blocking their access to oxygen with pillows and blankets. First, she killed Karla, then Liane and Maya at the same time. Lauren denied that she heard voices in her head or saw any hallucinations. After the first court hearing, a psychiatric examination was scheduled at the insistence of the lawyer. Lauren refused to eat and lost weight to less than 110 pounds. Problems with her physical and mental health dragged the case on for months. As a result, the hearings were postponed to July 17, 2023, almost 2 years after the brutal massacre. The child killer again appeared before the court. The attorneys tried to build their line of defense on the basis of the accused mental problems. The attorneys told their version of what happened. In their opinion, Lauren was disappointed and depressed by the long years of everyday life, health problems, and struggled with her perfectionism, which tormented her so much. Her depressive disorder made her see liberation in killing her daughters and then voluntarily taking her own life. Recently, the mother's relationship with the children had become very tense. They did not obey Lauren, who often resorted to physical punishment and pondered whether to give them sedatives. It was at the trial that one frightening detail was revealed. Graham admitted that his wife, at that time, had already talked to him 3 times about the fact that she could harm the children. However, the man did not take seriously the likelihood that his daughters were in mortal danger every time he left the house. Now, of course, he regretted it. It turned out that back in May 2019, Lauren admitted that she would like to smother her daughters with pillows. In July 2021, she said that she wanted to cut their femoral arteries in the bathtub. However, all this was not perceived as a real problem. Friends of the woman were found who confirmed that they had received similar alarming messages from her. No one could have imagined that Lauren, who always seemed like such a loving and caring mother, was actually capable of carrying out her horrific intentions. The path to motherhood was long and thorny for her, so the thought that she could take the lives of her little girls with her own hands seemed absolutely unreal. Lauren's husband, testifying in court, spoke about the difficulties his wife faced while raising their children. She was extremely organized, strictly adhered to the girls' daily routine, and kept everything under control. However, he never noticed Lauren hugging her daughters or the girls reaching out to their mother. This situation became especially noticeable during the pandemic when Graham was at home, and the children practically never left his side. According to Graham, moving to New Zealand was a real disappointment for Lauren. Reality turned out to be not at all what she had imagined. No one offered to help her at the airport. Chaos reigned everywhere. Problems arose with both housing and school for the children. In addition, Lauren experienced a real culture shock from everything she saw. Despite everything, her husband stated that he had forgiven his wife and considered her a victim of circumstances. In his opinion, all the difficulties that befell Lauren, especially the isolation due to the pandemic, broke her psyche. He called on others to forgive her as well and pray for her. Meanwhile, the prosecution insisted that the triple murder was committed by Lauren deliberately and was planned. She acted methodically and purposefully, as evidenced by her numerous search engine queries. The mother repeatedly tried to find out the lethal doses of various medications for children as well as methods of strangulation. In addition, she confessed her terrible intentions to loved ones several times. At the same time, psychiatrists confirmed that at the time of the crime, Lauren could indeed have been in a state of insanity. Women prone to suicide are also at risk of infanticide. They may plan to kill their children, guided by the illusory belief that the children will be better off in heaven with their mother than remaining alive without her in this cruel and indifferent world. Lauren was just such a depressed mother. Killing her own children seemed like the right decision to her. She realized that the world was gripped by the coronavirus pandemic, everyone was tired of isolation, the future had become uncertain, and she worried about the difficulties that lay ahead for them. Therefore, Lauren decided that it was better for her children to die with her, but she herself never dared to take her own life. On August 14, 2023, the jury began deliberating on the case materials. Before them lay hundreds of pages of research reports and documentation gathered by the investigation and experts. After the first round of discussions, the jurors were unable to reach a consensus on Lauren's guilt. They went back to the deliberation room, where they reviewed several detailed police videos that captured the testimony of the murdered girl's parents. More than 15 hours stretched over 2 days of careful examination of the case materials. On August 16, after a 4-week trial, the jury, which consisted of 8 women and 4 men, reached a verdict by majority vote of 11-1. They found Lauren guilty of triple murder and did not agree that at the time of the crime she was in a state of insanity. As the jurors left the courtroom, some of them could be heard crying. Lauren sat motionless in the defendant's bench, quietly sobbing as the sentence was read out. On June 26, 2024, a New Zealand judge sentenced Lauren Dickason to 18 years in prison for killing her 3 young daughters in 2021. She will be held at Hillmorton Hospital's secure mental health facility in Christchurch until she reaches a point where she is mentally well enough to be transferred to prison. Lauren Dickason fully admitted her guilt and expressed deep remorse. In her statement, she said, "I loved Liane, Maya, and Karla with all my heart. I failed them. I failed Graham, and I failed our families. I take responsibility for taking our 3 beautiful girls from this world. I would like to take this opportunity to convey the deepest and most sincere remorse for the extreme pain and hurt caused to my children and my family by my actions. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'd also like to send a special thank you to everyone who has donated to support my channel. Your support means the world to me and gives me the motivation to keep making new and interesting investigations for you, my wonderful viewers. Thank you all so much.